Despite the differences in our economic systems, models of governance, cultures and population sizes, China and Australia share common destinies as societies with rapidly urbanising futures. And this presents significant challenge for urban planning, placemaking and the sustainability of livable urban communities in our cities. Myself and my colleague Associate Professor Fang Xu and design technologist Adam Hinshaw set out to work with urban media stakeholders in Chongqing to co-design a participatory urban media interface that might be appropriate and beneficial to the local context. We collaborated with the Dimensions Arts Centre in Chongqing in a workshop that gathered together architects, urban planners, designers, artists, academics and students to frame problems and challenges and opportunities around this concept and to generate insights and discussion points and design-led contributions to inform the iterative development of the metaPLACE prototype. Essentially, metaPLACE is investigating how we might enable end-user participation by citizens through urban media acting as a diagnostic community engagement layer to more efficiently and more accurately deliver innovative and meaningful solutions for city development, livability and placemaking. In 2019, reported rates of urbanisation in China reached 60%, with projected rates of 70% by 2030, by which time it's said that 1 in 8 people on Earth will live in a Chinese city. But as early as 2014, Australia was experiencing rates of urbanisation approaching 90%, with 90% of the population living in just 0.22% of the country's land area.
Australia and China have a lot in common when it comes to the distribution of the population across cities and urban areas. Both countries are highly urbanized and have rural areas which are either being forgotten by the development, by the government plans in the past few decades, or have been left behind in the recent development. Both countries have a very high rate of urbanization. Australia is one of the most urbanized countries in the world. China has become rapidly urbanized in the past couple of decades. So the challenges involved in designing services for people in cities and in rural areas are very similar actually across the two countries.
So it's a great city to do this, and I think people are quite ready for anything that's interactive and their opinion and their voice heard. And so I think on the ground level for the public is a very interesting way of engaging the people, and I think a lot of people will be very responsive to it.
Okay, if you guys feel the answer to this question is not necessarily good enough or not being enough for your group, you are encouraged to propose your own questions.
I think for me, one of the most interesting things that happened at the co-design workshop was that our initial plan for how the workshop would run was not viewed as being particularly viable by our host, the Dimensions Arts Centre. And this meant we had to collaboratively renegotiate how the workshop was to operate.
Okay, for the public space, like the big screen in the heart of Chongqing, like Jeffan Way, that's a perfect place to use that.
This has been a very new experience for the audience we've been collaborating with. We've been told that this kind of exercise and workshop that brings together industry, students, academics and the local government is not a very common thing here in China.
Urban development commonly focuses on developing the more visible and attractive aspects of the city. Participants felt that while crowds in Chongqing's downtown public spaces are larger and data gathering could be conducted efficiently at scale, strengthening local communities by gathering citizen-derived data that is very targeted could be more beneficial, particularly to vulnerable community groups whose voices are not valued or are otherwise unheard. Participants interested in permaculture felt there are opportunities for using urban media to advance community engagement with greening places.
Another one may be dealing with earthworm or insects, butterflies, so lots of
whole ecosystem.
right, as a network.
The ubiquity of mobile phones was seen as a way to engage audiences. Data gathering through this familiar mechanism is likely to gather more reliable responses and was seen by participants as having an advantage over large public screens in spaces where audiences are more fluid and possibly less connected to the particular place being investigated. In principle, our prototype was seen as having some potential for generating inclusive and participatory placemaking data. However, participants felt management of the questions and topics would need careful consideration. As presented in the workshop, our prototype requested a response to a yes-no question. Participants felt this is quite incongruent with typical Chinese behaviours, because in the words of one participant, yes or no is not a Chinese choice, because when asked any question, we always answer okay. We've developed alternative question formats based on sliders and multiple choice questions that in a way gamify the experience a little more.
I hope that as we go along we would get better and better and understand more and more how this is conducted. How in regard with the government, I would thought the government would be welcoming this method to help them to make a consensus about how the public feel, because after all a place is made with the people here rather than the government running it in any part of the world, not just Chongqing or China.
I think the future is bright for the collaboration between Australia and China in that regard, because there's a lot, again, that we can learn from each other, and things that are developed for one context being applied on the other and benefit here.
The key insight for me as a design researcher is about the assumptions inherent in Western design processes and Western ideas about how design is carried out, what it's for, and the histories of design, which are inevitably entangled within colonial histories.